Hello, welcome to Meaningful Meetings. My name is Niamh and I am excited to help you create meetings that are more meaningful, more valuable, and are meetings that you look forward to attending. Over this course, I'm going to give you some practical ways to make your meetings more effective and ensure that it is the best use of everyone's time. Let's start by asking, what makes a meeting meaningful? Now, this is a good question for you to ask yourself or to ask with your team, because it depends on the kind of work that you do, the company that you're in, the industry that you're in. So for some people, a meaningful meeting is all around the topic to be discussed, the problem to be solved, the work to be done. For others, it could be around making sure that you're having that connection with other people, that you're spending time with other teams, and that you're working better together. Now, to get technical, a meeting is defined as a real-time gathering of two or more people for the purpose of achieving a common goal through conversation and interaction. So in this definition, we have both the work and the people. And I believe it's both sides of that make the meeting meaningful. We can have the best conversations in the world, but if we're not getting the work done, you will leave wondering if you should have done something else instead. And it's really hard to achieve our common goal if you don't get on with the people that you're trying to do the work with, or if there is poor communication or unclear responsibilities and actions. So I think we need both. And the fact that you're here taking this course, investing your time in doing this kind of work, tells me that you're the same type of person as me, that you really want to make the most out of meetings and to make sure you get the work done and in a way that works best for everyone. Before you schedule another meeting, I want you to do this exercise. This next exercise is called the meeting audit, and I am telling you it is invaluable. Whether you have been in your job for a week, a month, a year, 10 years, this is an exercise worth doing. The meeting audit allows you to take stock of the value of your current meetings and to learn from maybe things that aren't working well so that we can improve things going forward. In the Better Workday meeting audit template, there are a couple of different columns and each of them tells you a little bit about your meetings. In the first column, you're going to write down the meeting name, and I recommend you look at any recurring meetings and also any single or once-off meetings that have happened in the last couple of weeks, because they might tell you something depending on who was in attendance or the topic or other things like that. Next, you have to put in your role. Now, there are more than two roles in a meeting. There is more than just the organizer and the attendee. You also have the knowledge expert or the subject matter expert. That's the person who's bringing the information. You have the action takers. They're the people who are given work to be done. You have the decision makers. They are the people who get to sign off on different tasks or the next steps. You have the observers who are asked to come in and observe and take in the content of the meeting for their own learning and development. And you could be one of these or you could be all of them. So for example, if you are a team lead in your area, you could be coming in with the information or the knowledge that's needed for the meeting. You could be somebody who's going to be given action points as a result of what's discussed. You could have authority to accept those action points and to make a decision on whether to go forward with things or not. And you might also be there to learn from other people, right? So when we talk about a role, it's not just the organizer and the attendee, it's what role you play in this meeting. Now, the next column is a good one. Here I ask, what did the business gain? Because so often we talk about, the stuff to be done in the meeting, but what happened after the meeting? What did the meeting allow you or your team or the department or the company to do differently? So was a problem solved which allowed something else to move forward? What happened? What did the business gain? And then you personally, what did you contribute to the meeting and what did you learn from the meeting? And here's a clue. If the last three columns are fuzzy or blank in terms of what the business gained and what you contributed or learned, then it wasn't a very meaningful meeting. When it comes to the meeting itself, we want to make the most of every meeting. And there's 4 different areas we're looking at: the desired outcome, the best format for the meeting, how to manage the expectations of the people who are attending and to make the most of the people who are there. So to know the group and best manage the attendees of the meeting so that it's a really meaningful time together. The first step is to know what you want. I know, it sounds simple, but just because it's simple, it doesn't mean it's easy. So I want to know, what is the desired outcome of the meeting? I've said this already. What will the meeting allow you to do afterwards? Or you could ask, why is this meeting needed now? What do you need to happen after this meeting? Or what will happen if the meeting doesn't go ahead? And sometimes that's a better question to ask. Or maybe you could ask yourself, why can't this be an email? Because there are some things which you can put into email and other things which need to be discussed. And we want to focus on the things that need to be discussed. I always say to begin with the outcome in mind and then design the meeting to achieve that desired result or that desired outcome. There are many different types of meetings, which means it's possible for you to choose a format that best supports the outcome that you want to create. There are cadence meetings, and these meetings have known participants and predictable patterns. They're used to review your work or refine plans. So think of your weekly team meeting. That would be a cadence meeting. Then you have catalyst meetings, and they're designed to create change. And the people who attend these meetings are picked specifically for the change that wants to be created or made. So think of a brainstorming meeting, a new product development meeting, a problem solving meeting. These will all be catalyst meetings. And then you would have learn and influence meetings where you want to learn about a new thing or to evaluate a new idea or a new proposal, or perhaps some people want to influence others. So it's very much an us and them type style meeting. Think of an interview would be a learn and influence meeting. You're learning about each other and you're trying to influence each other's decision about whether or not, this is going to be a good fit in terms of a hire or a new job. Or perhaps a big town hall where leadership want you to learn about the company's direction for the next 6 months and they want to influence you to come on board and support that plan. So there are many different types of meetings within these categories, but this is a high level. And what I'd say to you is, when you are looking at your desired outcome, consider what type of format is going to suit your meeting best. Once you know the format, it's time to decide who is going to be in the meeting. Unless it's a cadence style meeting where it's going to be the same people all the time, you're going to want to be intentional about who you invite. And you can draft your attendee list and then answer these questions to make sure you've got the right people in the room, whether that's virtual or physical. What do you want them to contribute to the meeting? So why them? And if they can't attend, is there another person that can fulfill that need? Is the person a must-have or a nice-to-have? And what will happen if they don't attend? Can progress be made anyway? If you need more than one person from the same team, why? Is it because the two people have specific knowledge or areas of expertise? Or is it just because you've always invited more than one person from the same team? If the person can't attend, can you get the required information from them before the meeting by email, for example, and could you send them an update afterwards? And if the meeting is recorded, do they still need to attend? These questions filter through your attendee list to make sure only the people who must be in the room are invited into the room. And what that does is it means that there's plenty of space then for the discussion, because you're not crowding the room, whether again virtual or in person, with people who don't need to be there. Once you know the purpose, the format, and who is going to be attending the meeting, it is time to write the agenda. And there are a few things that every meeting attendee needs to know. First of all, what's the meeting purpose? Where is it going to be held and when? And what type of meeting is it? It's really helpful to let people know the meeting type before they join the meeting so they can mentally prepare. You're going to want to share the agenda items and the expected duration of each item. I always recommend adding buffer time onto each agenda item. And if you have 5 in your first draft agenda, take off 1. Always plan to cover less than you'd like. And you also want to have the priority of the agenda items on the agenda. What I mean by this is you might have the agenda in a certain order and it might not be based on priority. Quite often it's to give a little bit of flow to the meeting so that you're not talking about all heavy things first and then all smaller things at the end. Usually people like to balance it so that, there's a break in the meeting. But if one runs over for any reason, you want to be able to scan through the agenda items and know which one is most important, just in case you can't get to everything. Once you have the meeting agenda, share it straight away. The sooner people know what's expected of them, the sooner they can start preparing. So it's in everyone's interest to get that agenda written up as soon as you can. As I've said in the beginning, a good meeting, a meaningful meeting, has two parts. It has the work and it has the people. Now, knowing the purpose, picking the structure and the agenda are all around making sure that the work can get done in the meeting. But we also have the people, and it is the people that put the meaning into meetings. When you look at your group, there might be some people that you meet with more often than others. There could be a handful either from your team or from other teams, and they make their way into your regular cadence meetings. Maybe you invite them to your catalyst meetings. They're just always the same regular faces. And if you have some of those people, it could be very helpful for you to learn how they learn. So some people are readers and they prefer to consume information in books or in an article or pre-reading material. You could have watchers who really like presentations. Listeners prefer to have ideas verbally explained to them. Sketchers are the first person up to a whiteboard with a marker because they like to sketch out ideas. And then doers, well, they prefer just to start doing the work to get stuck in and then come back to you with questions later. Why do I talk about this in meetings? If you are meeting with the same people regularly and you know how they learn, you can design the meeting to support their different learning styles. And you can all help each other out to make sure that everybody learns a little bit more effectively. A meeting full of listeners might not need any presentation. A meeting full of watchers definitely needs a presentation. If there's a doer or a lot of doers in the room, the meeting might be split in two, where you discuss the first half of what needs to be talked about or whatever, and then people go do the work or try to implement the thing or try to fix the problem, and then you resume the second half of the meeting after people have tried to learn by doing. Take a little bit of time to get to know your meeting attendees and it will pay dividends in terms of the meeting. And it's not just how they learn, it's also how people think. Quite often when we're in a meeting with someone who has a different thinking style to us, we feel like either they're not engaging because perhaps they have an internal thinking style, or they're taking over the meeting because they have an external thinking style. Internal thinkers prefer to think on their own and then present their ideas for feedback once they're clear in their own minds. Whereas external thinkers like to discuss their thoughts with someone else to get clarity. If you know who's in the room, and if they know what kind of style they are, it allows you to better manage the attendees. If you know you have a lot of internal thinkers, then you might schedule a follow-up session to get feedback. If you know you have a lot of external thinkers, you might bring in something like a parking lot where their ideas get captured on paper and you come back around to them after. Or perhaps, honestly, if you have a lot of external thinkers, you might half the agenda in terms of items and to make sure that the one or two things that must get discussed do get discussed. Now that you have prepped for your meeting, it's time to get in the room. While you are facilitating your meeting, I highly recommend that somebody else is keeping time for you so that they can make people aware if the agenda is about to run over or if you're running short on time. Some people prefer to have speedy meetings, which are 45 minutes long or 25 minutes long, depending on how many items are there to be discussed. Sometimes I actually prefer to have a longer meeting, especially if it's a catalyst meeting, because you want to give the space to fully discuss or fully cover what it is that you want to do. So really take into consideration, again, the purpose of the meeting, the style, and who's going to be in the room. While you're there, take notes if you can. It's even better if multiple people can take notes because then there's a higher likelihood that everything is going to get captured. And above all else, make sure to leave time at the end of your meeting to agree the action items so that you're not running out the door and people are wondering, do I have work to do after? Do I not have work to do after? Well done on watching the course so far because we covered the basics of a meaningful meeting. But there are a few more things I want to talk to you about to make sure that meetings work well in your workday. The first is to ensure that you are managing your own expectations around how much time it takes to run a meaningful meeting. It's not just the time for the meeting itself. You need time beforehand to prepare, which includes setting the agenda, making sure that you've got the right people in the room, and creating any pre-meeting material. But you also want to have time after the meeting, either to write up notes or to do your actions if you've been assigned any, or even just to digest what has been discussed. And quite often we don't allow ourselves that time. So if you are responsible for arranging or organizing the meeting, then when you are planning for it in your week, I want you to plan time before, during, and after. And if you don't have time for the before and after, then I'd ask if you can get help in terms of running that meeting, or if the meeting needs to be as regular or as soon as you originally intended. If you are attending a meeting, my one piece of advice is to take a breath, take a moment before you enter the meeting, whether it's online or in person, and ask yourself, how can I support this meeting? So often we are running from task to task that we don't catch a moment to think about how we can show up in our best way to add meaning, because the successful meeting is down to every single person in that room. I hope you create more meaningful meetings, and until next time, stay well and have a better workday.